Where were we? Sorry about that. Technical difficulties.
So I was finishing up with, being that deep, it's hard for teams to defend us. And then Caden had jumped in and said, yeah, we're a deep team and we got a lot of scorers. But the other thing you were mentioning is that there was maybe some criticism on Twitter that we hadn't played anybody. And I make this comment a lot, when you're ranked number one or when you're good at something, people tend to
take pot shots.
They take pot shots, and
there's probably somebody who's never even watched us play.
It's lonely at the top, right?
Right.
It's lonely there. A lot of people never experience that, and so they tend to try and cut you down and things like that. But it's difficult. But I think this is the right team. I think this is the right team to be in the situation because I don't think this is something that will affect them. They'll be able to handle any of the comments because I think they believe in themselves. And, rankings are ranking, but what you do with it is what matters. And I think that's how Coach Hartman is attacking that. So
that's weird. I don't know what I was doing. I was doing something weird. Anyway.
Is it?
I don't know. Might have lost some of that, but we'll keep going. We had it up to like 12 people watching. Now it's at 1. That's what happens. So then, let's see. Did we talk about the bowling teams?
No, we haven't. And I'm not well versed in what all happened during last year's bowling seasons. I
think both boys and girls qualified for state.
Yep, I think they both had winning records. I'm not sure I saw all the stats and all the dates, but I think the boys maybe only had one loss. They were 4-1 at one point. I don't know if all the data's in there, but I know that they had a pretty successful season. And I think Luke Brame was a pretty good bowler right up there. I think, did he go to state for bowling?
For individual?
I've actually got the
Luke Brame fan club president over here.
President of the Luke Brame fan club is here, and he's kind of giving me that's right, Chad, that Luke was...
Speaking of Luke, I can't end 2018 without talking about Luke, because I actually do miss watching that kid play. He could be, if you're playing against him, he could be antagonistic as all get out, but he was fun to watch.
He was fun to watch, and... you saw him in football. He was probably an undersized kid out there, but man, he played big, and he did the same thing in basketball. He just always made an impact somehow and made his presence known. And sometimes you need a guy like that to get in the other team's head and make some things happen. And he provides a spark. I
think I coined the phrase last year during basketball season. Whenever he'd come in, like somebody's about to get brained.
Yeah, for sure. But good kid, I miss seeing him out there on the field and on the court. I know he's at the University of Iowa now, and I just miss watching that kid play.
Then
I don't know anything about how the tennis seasons were either. I thought.
Oh. Sorry, I was trying to decipher the technical problems I'm having here with. It says video, so I'm not going to worry about it.
Okay.
So.
Do you have any data on the tennis seasons?
Huh?
The tennis seasons?
I had nothing on that.
Okay, so apologize about that. Maybe we can cover that in
I don't have anything on tennis. I don't have anything on trap.
Yeah, I don't either. Well, maybe we can do a separate segment sometime on branch off on those, but some of the other sporting things that happened this year. So, volleyball, fall volleyball.
I saw a few matches. Nothing that comes to my mind though that stood out. Not to sound derogatory at all. It's just
I made it to the first playoff game at West Dubuque. Up there, and West Dubuque seemed a very, very solid team. they gave us all we could handle that night. Getting young, I think we had a pretty young team. I know there was a few seniors, I believe. Martin. Jocelyn was hurt at the end of the year, if I remember right.
Autumn was out.
Autumn was hurt, yeah. So
I think that kind of took a toll a little bit.
Yeah, I just didn't get to see much of the volleyball season with 8th grade football, and
I saw a few, and my daughter was on the, I don't know what you call it, sophomore team, but after you spend like 2 hours watching the first bit of it, and I mean that can go on for like 5-6 hours sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just can't put that many hours in, but
Can't
we'll get them a lot more coverage come this fall too, because I actually tried to get KMAQ to let me call volleyball games last fall, and it just didn't work out for them to do that. But we'll definitely have them on MCSN here this next fall. And then we'll move to football season, where I think the number one moment of the season kind of lies. And when we ended, I think it was 18-game losing streak at the time.
18-game losing
Went up to
streak.
Dubuque Wahlert. We're down, 24 at half? And
well, we were down 21 at half.
21 at half.
We were down in the second quarter. We were down 42-14.
Yeah.
And these things, these streaks, winning streaks become very difficult on teams. There's a lot of pressure to keep a streak going. The same thing can be said for losing streaks, because you kind of get consumed by the streak, right? Hey, it's 15 games, it's 16 games, and then you start to question, well, when's it going to end? And how can we get over this? And then you haven't figured out how to win in a while, but so that game was key, not only for the mentality for this year, but for moving forward.
So Cannon, what do you remember from that game? Anything? You got to remember something from that game. You've been quiet.
Yeah. The wide receivers did a great job getting open the whole night. And the line blocking, making holes for me to run, the running backs to run, and the defense stopping the Wahlert when we needed it. So.
Yeah, a very key play in that series in that game was right before halftime, right? When
Right.
they had a chance to go back up by 28, and they were inside the 5-yard line, first and goal, I believe.
Yep, and we stopped
our
them.
defense held them. And I've watched some parts of that game multiple times, and Hunter Connolly knocked down the last 2 passes of the half. And their quarterback was phenomenal, Bryce Osterberger, and always was trying to keep play alive and throw it. And I credit our defense, and you could name every one of them out there that did something on those plays, but I just remember Hunter Connolly knocking down those last 2 passes, and what a key that was, because we got the ball back to start the second half, and went down and scored, and it's just.
Well, the one thing I remember from that game, other than talking you off the ledge at halftime, because we were doing radio for that, and I could tell you were starting to go to your dark place.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I just had a feeling. All night I had a feeling we were going to win this. I just had that feeling.
Yeah, you were. I remember that. You kept saying, you kept saying I feel good, and I was struggling a little bit, and you do that when your son's out there and you're emotional and you're riding an 18-game losing streak, but you had the right mentality, and I think the kids did too, and I think even when they came out at halftime, you kind of got the sense that, our kids still pretty fired up here.
And when I knew we had that game was, I think it was like midway through the fourth quarter, we just tied it up. And Wahlert had the ball, and they were facing like a 3rd and long, deep in their own end. And they took a timeout, and you could tell by how their team was on the field looking at their sideline like, what do we do? And our whole defense is out there like dancing around, led by Liam Onen, of course. Yeah. They're just dancing.
Yeah.
I knew then we're coming out of here with a W.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting, and it was the second half was so emotional, and it was a roller coaster ride. But it was just a fun game to watch in the end. If you like offense, it was a fun game to watch. Now, one thing I'll say about our kids is I think maybe we were a little bit deeper that night, not much, but we just seemed to be better conditioned. We outlasted them. You could tell they were getting tired.
It was probably one of the few teams we played that we probably had a deeper bench then.
Yeah,
and
right.
it showed.
Yeah,
because we were at the opposite end of that most of the season.
Yeah, and they had a receiver go down late in the game. That was in the fourth quarter, so it might have made a little bit of difference. But we were I think we scored in every possession in the second half, except for maybe one.
The last one.
Well, we fumbled on one too.
That's right. Yep, you're right.
But but Cannon, you want any good memories from that game that night you'd like to talk about that you can think of, or?
Come on, it had to be me coming in the locker room after the post game and giving you a big hug.
Total 7 touchdowns. Passing for quite a few yards. Rushing, probably the best game I had all year. So
yeah.
Not only all year, but you're being modest. It's actually the best performance by a Maquoketa Cardinal quarterback in football history.
It was a good game, and the one thing Dale and I missed during that game that I wish we hadn't missed is that you caught that one touchdown pass in the second half. For some reason, we thought
I thought it was Caden.
I did too, and I was trying to do some of the stat stuff at the time, but we missed that, which would have been kind of a neat moment too. But I know Coach Bowman covered this in the end of the year banquet or whatever. That it was first player in Maquoketa history to throw for. Dale, go ahead.
Yeah, I got it right here in front of me. This is courtesy of Jack Marlowe. Gave it to Kevin Bowman, Coach Bowman, I should say. Immediately Sunday after that game, and then Kevin gave me a copy when we did the coaches show later in that week. But as an individual for Cannon, most points scored in one game, you tied the school record with Billy Veach in 2006. Most touchdowns scored in one game, 5 by you. Record tied Billy Veach, 2006. You're the first person to run for a touchdown, pass for a touchdown, and catch a touchdown. So, pretty impressive. And I think, how many yards passing did you have? Like, total yards combined for both teams was 1,113. We had 582.
Which I think was the most ever in a game.
Oh, it was by almost 200 more yards we broke that record. And that was set back in 2013. Just going down the list, I mean, points scored, it ranked second on the list by points scored by a Maquoketa team. Most points scored by both teams was a record. Most first downs, you could beat that record by 4 with 29. Now, negatively, most opponent yards passing, given up.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is just the litany of where that game will rank in historical marks is just impressive.
Yeah. And I think he was the first person to... Did you lose it?
No, it's good. We're good.
First person to throw for over 300 yards and rush for over 100 yards in the same game. And I think at least once before that this season he was over 200 yards passing, over 100 yards rushing, which is only like 3 or 4 other kids have done that. So yeah, good season. Even though the record wasn't great, we had some good things happen, and I think that's what people are starting to get excited about. Looking to the future, Maquoketa football is I think we're turning that corner, and things are gonna. And
kind of pick up on your point, it wasn't just Cannon. I will finish this with about Cannon though. First season starting as a varsity quarterback as a sophomore. In his first 2 games, showed me a lot of. You seemed like you were already a 3-year starter, because you had the time from your line. You were able to go down to your 3rd, 4th, sometimes your 5th read, and come back to another read before you threw. And that, I just got to say, that was impressive. Really was.
Do you feel like you did some of those things? Do you think like you were getting off to multiple reads on pass plays and?
Yeah.
Until we got to the middle of the season, teams started getting some pressure on you, and then you had to become a runner, and you were able to do that consistently well. But it wasn't just Cannon either.
Absolutely.
Abe Mickle, tremendous year. That kid has a motor that won't quit.
Taven Rich.
Taven running the ball, I can't wait to see next year.
Yeah.
I cannot wait. Because if we're 4th and 2 or 4th and 1, that kid should get the ball.
Yeah. It was fun to watch there at the end. But, the other things he does, he gets double-teamed a lot on defense.
Yeah.
So most people don't see that. He creates a lot of holes on offense. He's a big dude, and he makes things happen. But the rest of our line did too. I don't want to. That's kind of a unit. The average person probably doesn't realize, but they have blocking schemes and they have assignments and they have to work together on plays and do things. And I think our line did a really good job of protecting Cannon and helping him and the Cardinals do some good things. I watched a couple of those plays in the Waller game, and our running backs are 10 yards down the field, and they have their hand on one of the linemen, trying to feel for which way to go with the lineman in front of them. And that says a lot about not giving up on a play and working together. So a lot of good things I saw.
Liam Onen, I thought, had a tremendous year defensively.
Yeah, Liam Onen.
And offensively late.
It really seemed like, and maybe the first couple games, there's so much going on, and you're trying to, we were doing radio, so you're trying to talk about everything that's going on, and maybe you're not absorbing everything that's going on. And I think it was maybe the CPU game where...
Well, we had 2 days to go through
that
one.
We had 2 days, but it just seemed like Liam brought this energy those couple days that maybe changed, what do you think, Cannon, the way that... Maybe the way we approach the rest of the season.
Yeah. His energy brought more energy to the whole team, and everyone was pumped up the whole time.
Yeah, and he shaved his head that week, right?
Had the cardinal painted on the side.
It was homecoming, and he just, you could tell he was enjoying himself out there, and for some reason, I think that just, I don't want to say lightened the mood, but I think it made everybody else relax a little bit and just play ball. And we played, Isaac Christ had a great game against CPU, and I just think Liam kind of was the one that maybe helped put that all together. He played great on defense. He had a couple big catches. He just did a lot of things well.
The offensive line, I thought, did, for the most part, great most of the season. And some of them were undersized, like Grant Mickle, for one. But the kid had tremendous effort.
Yeah.
And Lane Stender, I thought, had a really good season.
Yeah, Lane Stender. Zach Gavin got hurt. Was it the first game of the year?
First or second?
Yeah, that high ankle sprain. And
it might have been the DeWitt game, the second game.
That bothered him for a couple weeks, and he battled through that. So, and he did some good things, and in being limited, with that injury.
In the second half of the season, kind of out of nowhere, I think it was the Mount Vernon game when he finally got in. Leo Beal.
Leo Beal's a force to be reckoned with.
He was just put in and said, "What do I?" He just told, "Just go, get the quarterback."
I think our success defensively next year will. I think he's gonna be a big part of that. I do. The other kid that probably doesn't get a lot of recognition either, but Brendan Cook did a nice job on the line, and he was one of those kids in the film that I watched where he's out in front of somebody, blocking 10, 15 yards down the field and looking for somebody else to hit and leading one of the running backs down the field. So, little things like that, those kids on the line don't get a lot of recognition, and it all starts and ends with them, and I just saw some really good things out of them at times.
And receiving wise, we were talking about your receivers. Caden Atienza had some big games at times. Liam had some big games there as well.
Right. Yeah, you can go back and I've watched a lot of the season, and at different times, Bryce Hansen early in the season had some games where he had quite a few catches, and Aaron Bramer, talking about a couple other those are the other two seniors, along with Zach Gavin. They all did things at different times, but they all had nice games and contributed, and I think, helped with some of the leadership stuff. And, Caden Atenza. Liam had some huge games. He had over 100 yards against Waller. I think he had over 100 yards against CPU. Blaze Luna had some...
He had some moments.
He had some moments, and I look for more things to come out of him next year, too. I think that kid's a football player. I've seen him at some of the lower levels.
JV game, he had 3 touchdowns there at the beginning of the season.
He can just be an animal at times and hit people, and he's somebody to look out for next year too. And Hunter Conley coming in.
I was gonna get to that.
He's 5 interceptions.
He's coming for your record.
Yeah,
he came close.
So he came in limited action and had 5 interceptions, which I believe was top in our district and top on our team, and just did for the playing time he had. I just think he did a tremendous job, and I'm excited to see what he does moving forward too.
Okay, well, I think that pretty much wraps up this last year in sports. Maybe look ahead to this year a little bit. I know I'm pretty excited to watch this boys basketball team the rest of the year.
Yeah, and I was kind of looking ahead to Friday night in Benton, and looks like they've kind of been up and down a little bit, but it looks like they got a couple scorers, and it looks like, don't take them lightly, because I'm sure they're going to come in here, and like Matt said, that everybody's got a target on you. I'm sure they're going to want to come here and prove how good they are. They beat CCA, which I know is a pretty decent team, and they beat somebody else that I thought was pretty good early in the year too.
I don't have it off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'd have to look again, but I expect that to be a good game Friday night.
And then we got the wrestling duel tomorrow against Marion in West Delaware at Maquoketa Gym.
Yep.
We'll have that on KMAQ Radio. It'll be me and Coach Tampier. And then I'll also be streaming that as well.
Okay.
We'll stream the boys' sophomore and varsity game on Friday. And then I think we're still in the works, and like I said, 2019 is going to be a big year just because of this MCSN too.
Oh yeah, big things to come, and get out there and support the athletes. If you can, get to the games, get to the matches, watch some of the streams if you can. But this winter sports season, once you hit this after break, it goes quick. So it's going to be the middle of February, very quick, and the season's going to be coming to an end, and just get out and support the athletes. I know they sure appreciate it when the gyms are packed, and I'm talking boys and girls. Get out there and watch them and support them, and give them some recognition. I think that's what we're trying to do. Is just help promote these student athletes. They put in a lot of time. The boys basketball team. These kids are going 6 or 7 days a week since the season started. I think last Saturday was the only Saturday they've had off, and they're putting a lot of time in, and they sure like it when people come watch or watch online and support them and tell them when they see them out that that they're doing a good job. So.
Yep, and I expect some good things come end of February, beginning of March for both boys and girls basketball teams.
I do too. I think both teams should be playing more than one postseason game.
And then got bowling going on as well, and I'm not sure how they're doing yet.
Well, I think they've only had a couple meets, but so one other thing before we, and he already left, but I don't want to end this without talking about Caden Scott and signing with William Penn Baseball, and that's a big thing, that Maquoketa should be proud of, and Dale, you should be proud of, and he should be proud of.
I was shocked.
Yeah, so good for him. So Caden's going to play baseball at William Penn University in Oskaloosa.
I think we'll have a couple basketball players. They haven't totally committed to anything yet, but
yeah, we'll have some.
We'll probably know in April.
Yep, there's definitely some that can go play. There are probably 3 of them, and I think I believe Nathan Waters is looking at some discus, track and field programs at some of the schools, and He's taken some visits and been doing some camps, so I think he wants to keep, playing sports moving forward. So, and if we hear about anybody else, I'd like to pass on. And something we'd like to do maybe in the future is do some interviews with some of these kids.
Oh,
and
definitely.
Just, let people get to know them and what they're about, and just promote these athletes and let them enjoy some of the success and glory too. So.
And Cannon, have you gotten your first football letters from schools yet? They're coming.
No football. No. I don't anticipate I'll get anything until they really can't communicate with them
next year.
I think with the new regulations it'll probably be July. So we'll see what happens there.
Well, we all know he's going to play baseball, right? Your dad and I have the same conversation almost every road trip.
Yeah.
But thanks for coming in. Anything else you want to bring up?
What's your favorite memory of last year for sports?
Yeah, for sports, not socially.
The Wahlert win.
Wahlert win, yeah.
Even more so than the home run, huh? I can see it though. I can see it.
Football's such a team sport, and winning a game like that is just the. Let's just go back to that game real quick because
I think you and I were overcome with so much pride after that. We couldn't wait to wrap up the post game show.
I couldn't wait to get out of the booth and get down there and to see the kids be able to celebrate on the field together with the fans. Where they all run together and do that was emotional because they haven't got to do it in 2 years. You know, and some of these kids have never had the chance to do it. And even though it was a road game, there was a good student presence there yet, and they celebrated. And honestly, everybody went back to where the locker room was, and it was like we won the state championship. I mean, people were taking pictures and celebrating and high-fiving, and people were crying. Players were crying, coaches were crying, parents were crying.
Broadcasters were crying,
Broadcasters were crying. And I remember walking into that locker room after the kids had kind of just gotten in there, and man, was it electric. It was just, boy, you could just feel the vibe in there, and you couldn't help but smile and cry and see the looks on their faces. And man, if there's ever a group of kids that deserved it, it was that group in that locker room. And they wanted to make sure that everybody that was a part of it was in the picture. That's what I remember, is they wanted to make sure that they were getting everybody in there and they were together, and they wanted to be together in there and outside. It was just a neat atmosphere, and it was one win, but man, it was a big one.
It was a huge one. We need you guys to bring us something like that in baseball.
Yeah.
But yeah, and with MCSN, we'll be bringing a lot of these other sports, so everybody can see, and we'll kind of get a better idea of how those all go. And
yeah, working with the school on what is the right
what is
the right format.
I will say there is no definitive with home games yet. They're right now tentatively or be on tape delay. Road games would be live. That subject to change. There's some conversations that need to be had yet and iron out some details. And it's not like the school's anti-MCSN. They're actually for it, but it just needs to be some groundwork laid down and how this is going to go about.
Make sure we got everything covered. And I think the goal of everybody is to help promote the student-athlete of Maquoketa.
Because it's lacking. Lack of better terms, the coverage isn't there like there was when we were in school or we were kids. There really is no acknowledgement for these kids for the most part, and
no.
It may seem like we're kind of going towards one direction. I just wanted people to know that's not going to be the case. Starting next school year, it will be this school year, just in the interim while we get things figured out, get it up to where it needs to be, and then next school year it'll be boys, girls, sports, different levels, as much as we can.
We hope to get some students involved in helping out with this too, and
get a couple setups and
I give a lot of credit to Dale. He's done a lot of this, getting it started on his own and figuring things out. He's put a lot of time in, and I just hope everybody understands that we've done all this on a volunteer basis, all our own equipment, all our own time, just to kind of help these student athletes out. So we appreciate everybody that tunes in and watches or listens or watches the replays or even just says thank you and appreciate, you know, that we're doing some of these things. I mean, just a simple thank you goes a long way and makes it worthwhile.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you again. We'll see you from the games, and I think probably our next we'll get together here every so often and kind of go over what's been going on and what's coming up. And
yeah, we'll just kind of do maybe a monthly review. But big thing I think moving forward is getting some of the athletes in and doing some live video interviews with them, and we want people to know these athletes and things like that. So,
all
Cannon,
right.
thanks for joining us. I hope you had fun. I know you're a man of few words anyway, so
You're gonna have to work on your broadcasting skills as you get a little bit
I'm here.
older.
Just glad to be here. I want to help the team anyway.
All right. Thanks for listening.
All right, thanks everybody.